Trump hush money trial is coming to an end here in New York City as closing arguments wrapped up yesterday. The jury expected to get the case today.
The former president facing felony charges related to a 2016 hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all charges. Joining us now to discuss is civil and criminal attorney Donte Mills. Donte, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what do you make of the defense's closing arguments and the fact that they were basically going on both sides for over 8 hours yesterday?
8 hours of closing arguments is an incredibly long time. A jury can't really process what you're saying if they're asleep. Talking for 8 hours, I don't know if there's anybody that can process all of that information. 6 hours of about the 8 hours was about Michael Cohen, with the combination of both sides. He was clearly the prosecution's star witness. The prosecution has to prove that Donald Trump falsified his business records and that he paired that with another crime like tax evasion or election fraud. So remember, hush money is not illegal, but what they're saying is Michael Cohen paid this money for Donald Trump, which was election fraud because that's a campaign violation, and then he lied on his books about it, on his business records. So what the defense is saying, they can't really deny that this happened. They're saying the jury, maybe the prosecution didn't prove that it happened, but they ended their closing argument, and their last line was, you can't send someone to jail for this. They're not supposed to say that, but they said it because I think the defense in this case is he's a former president, and this is something that happens all the time, so don't send him to jail for it. Don't punish him for it. And this is what many people have been saying. It's selective prosecution. They're saying it's not a big deal, essentially. So don't prosecute or punish him, find him guilty for this type of crime. I really think that that's what the defense's argument is, because it's clear with common sense that he knew these payments were happening. He knew that they were trying to hide these payments. So there's really no way to get around that.
So do you think prosecutors made a strong enough argument here?
Well, I think the prosecutors did their job of showing that Donald Trump wanted to cover up this affair from coming out. They said he wanted to cover it up because he knew it would affect the election, and that is the crime. So I do think that the prosecutors showed enough that this crime happened. And technically, if the jury goes by the books, I think this matches with the law. So the judge is going to tell the jury what the law is, what they have to find, and I think the facts are there. Prosecution showed enough that this wasn't documented as a payment in their books. It was documented as a legal fee, which it was not. It was a payment to Stormy Daniels, and they did it so that it wouldn't come out before the election. So technically, I think the crime is proven. It's just a matter of whether or not the jury is going to find the former president of the United States guilty for it and punish him for something that the defense is saying happens kind of routinely.
So Donte, let me ask you this. Let's say he is convicted. What then happens next to Trump?
So there's a debate right now because, remember, Michael Cohen, who was a part of this process for the same crimes, he went to jail. So does that mean that the former president of the United States, if he's convicted of these similar crimes to Michael Cohen, will he go to jail too? Or will the judge say, listen, he's a former president, we can't send him to jail. What kind of alternative punishment can we come up with? Maybe some probation, something like that. But then you're restricting Donald Trump's movements as he's a presidential candidate. You know, is that really feasible or possible? Will that happen? But if he's convicted of these crimes, it's a felony. So he's eligible for jail. I don't think ultimately, though, there's a world where we could see a former president go to jail because he has, security, he has things like that. That's assigned to him. So I don't think it's feasible or possible. But jail is eligible if he's convicted of these felony charges.
What would the grounds for appeal be if Trump is convicted?
If Trump is convicted, there's no question in my mind that his team will appeal this case. They're going to say that he did not receive a fair trial. They're going to point to some of the rulings of the judge, some of the evidence that was allowed to come in. Specifically, you're talking about some of the statements from Stormy Daniels about details of the affair, which they're going to say influenced the jury or prejudiced the jury. Some of the testimony from Michael Cohen that they're going to say prejudiced the jury. Those things they're going to say should not have come into the trial, and they're going to demand that there's an appeal. But in criminal cases, the appeal happens after sentencing. And say, for example, Trump is sentenced to jail, he may have to go to jail while that appeal is pending. So it's really a situation where he's in a bad spot if this jury comes back with a guilty verdict. And I think there's a high likelihood that they will, because, again, the prosecution proved the facts of their case. It's just a matter of whether or not the jury will send the former president or find the former president guilty because of it.
Donte, just real quickly, 10 seconds. How long do you think this jury deliberates?
That's a tough question. It's 34 counts. It's a lot of information for them to process, but I'm expecting a verdict by the end of the week. The jury's been paying attention to this case. It was about 5 weeks long, but I'm expecting a verdict by the end of the week. They'll sit all day today, tomorrow, and I think we'll get a verdict on Friday.
All right, we'll have you back when we do, that's for sure. Civil and criminal attorney Donte Mills. Donte, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All righty.